Welcome to the Portal Library. Step through and let the magic begin. Make sure to like, subscribe, and comment if you'd love more stories or have a request. New videos uploaded every Friday.
The Magic That Knew My Name. Episode 1. Axipere, the Lake and the Light. Soren grew up in a house that did everything right, where three worlds tried to love him at the same time. Winter never truly crossed the threshold. Soup arrived before the chill, and someone always knew whose turn it was to speak. It was a good house, full of rules designed to keep love from getting lost. The walls had the soft beige of American suburb rentals. The kitchen smelled like epis and ginger tea, and the hallway still had a framed print of Mount Fuji that his mother refused to take down because, quote, "It's the first thing I bought for myself when I came here." On Sundays, there might be rice and beans and stewed chicken. On Wednesdays, miso soup because she was homesick in that direction today. And on most weeknights, there was the American compromise. Roasted vegetables, chicken, a salad, something she said his co-workers would recognize. The house was generous, but it was also tidy about how a boy should move through it. From outside, it looked perfect. Warmth, laughter, old music on the weekends, a mother who sent food to neighbors, a father who fixed people's cars in the driveway. It was a house trying to survive America while still honoring where it came from. But from inside, for Soren, it was a house of careful performances.
I knew the rules. Don't walk around listlessly, don't drift. Men have purpose. Sit straight when older relatives are here. Don't interrupt when dad is talking. Don't raise your voice when mom is remembering the old days. If you cry, do it fast. If you are hurt, say, "I'm good." If you are confused, save it for later. If you're quiet for too long, someone will ask if you're angry. I loved them. That was never in question. My mother's laugh was home. My father's hands smelled like oil and citrus, and I thought he could fix anything. But loving people and fitting their idea of you are two very different sports. Dinner that night, the night I left, wasn't special. That's what made it brutal. Big things are easier to brace for. Small, ordinary nights cut under the ribs. My father had ESPN playing low in the background, more habit than interest. He was telling a story about my cousin. Older, engaged, already working construction with his fiancé's uncle.
You see? That boy understands. You do for family. You get recognized. You stay steady. People can count on you.
He tapped the table for emphasis.
That's a man.
My mother, rinsing something in the sink, said without looking up,
"It's easier when the path is straight. Not everybody's path is straight."
She meant it kindly. She always did. She was remembering her own curved path. Born in Japan to a Haitian father who was studying there, raised mostly by her Japanese mother, then moving to the States at 14, hoping to be herself, and then finding out America needed her to be palatable instead. She collected paths like souvenirs. She had patience for detours. My father snorted anyway.
Straight enough if you don't go looking for problems.
That was the thing about my father. Even when he said it lightly, you heard the anchor in it. He was a man who had worked too hard to let his son go looking for problems. I was at the table, plate in front of me, halfway through eating, doing that smile I'd practiced for years. The one that said, "I'm present, I'm grateful, don't look at me too closely." My sister wasn't there. She had a late shift. It was just the three of us, like it had been when we first got here. Safe, familiar, tight. My mother sat down finally, drying her hands.
"How is the job, Soren?"
Here it was. The question that wore 3 outfits. How is the job? Are you okay in America? How is the job? Are you doing something we can be proud of? How is the job? Are you stable enough for us to rest now? It's fine, I said. We're onboarding new clients, so there's a lot of documentation. I basically write things about processes. People read them, or don't. My father chuckled.
He's good with words, your son.
My mother smiled at me, eyes soft.
He's always been. Even when he was little, he'd tell stories to himself while he played.
That part was true. I always had a story. I used to line up my action figures and pretend one of them was a traveling cook who fought monsters by feeding them. It made sense to me. My mother loved it. My father would ruffle my hair and say,
Nice, but remember, that's not work.
and so I remembered. At 24, fresh out of college, first year at a job with health insurance and a business casual dress code, I had learned to make every story private. I had swapped out, I like to cook, for I like to work out. I had swapped, I like fantasy novels, for I've been meaning to read more. I had swapped, I want to build something soft and beautiful, for I'm open to management in a few years. I had learned to translate myself into masculine. I ate another piece of chicken. I could feel the moment coming like thunder far away.
Do they have any other Haitians there? Or Japanese?
Not in my team. There's a Nigerian guy in data and a Dominican in marketing. My father raised his eyebrows.
No Japanese?
His accent thickened a bit when he was surprised.
You should talk to them.
I shrugged. Most people just do Teams calls and go home. My mother sighed, that soft, disappointed sound.
This country makes everyone so lonely.
My father seized the opening.
Which is why you build your own. You don't wait until 30 to start a family. You hear me?
There it was. I knew the script. Laugh, say something vague, let it pass. But that day had been long. At work, I'd sat through a meeting where 3 guys whose shirts all fit better than mine talked loudly about football, and one of them said to me,
You don't talk much, huh? We gotta get you out more, bro.
and I had smiled and said, yeah, man, for sure. Even though I don't like bars because bars make you shout and I spend all day swallowing my voice, I don't want to shout on purpose. I had eaten lunch alone at my desk because I didn't want anyone to see me watching cooking videos. I had scrolled past a post from an old college friend who was now in Japan teaching English, and part of me ached in a language I don't even speak well. So when my father said,
You don't wait until 30.
I didn't laugh fast enough. He noticed. Of course he noticed.
What?
I put my fork down. Nothing. My mother looked at me more closely.
You're tired.
I'm always tired. And that was the first true thing I'd said all day. My father leaned back.
Tired of what? You work in an office. You're not lifting refrigerators.
I almost said, I'm tired of being translated, but I didn't. Instead, I said, I'm figuring things out.
Figure faster. You have to lead. You're the man. Your sister is watching. Family back home is watching. You can't be indecisive.
And you don't want to wait to have kids because you'll be tired.
Mom, I said, sharper than I meant to. The room stilled a little. She blinked at me.
I'm just saying, you'll understand when you have a wife.
I laughed then. Wrong move. It came out a little bitter. Will I? That was the moment. Not a big fight, just a hairline crack. My father's eyes narrowed, not angry, just calculating.
You don't want to get married?
I could have said yes to make it easy. I could have said someday. I could have said I'm focusing on my career like the other guys at work. But under his question lived all the other questions he didn't know how to ask. Do you want the kind of life we understand? Will you make us look like we did it right? Are you normal? I felt 12 again, sitting at the table, wanting to say, I like cooking, I like soft things, I like stories. I don't want to be the loudest person in the room. I don't want to be a husband if I have to play a role that doesn't fit. I don't want to disappoint you, but I am already this shape, and swallowing it because kids don't get to say that. I don't know yet, I said. My father exhaled through his nose.
You're 24.
Exactly, I said. I don't know yet. My mother watched us like someone watching two waves trying not to crash. She reached for my hand, squeezed.
You always take longer ever since you were little. You were late to walk, late to talk. But when you did, it was beautiful.
My father shook his head, muttering.
This country makes boys soft.
He didn't mean America, not really. He meant this version of America, where his son can say, I don't know yet, where masculinity isn't enforced by the same exact street his own was enforced on. It scared him. He masked it as annoyance. My family wasn't cruel. They were just holding on to what had kept them afloat, trying to offer it to me like a life vest, not realizing I was already on shore, needing something else. But I just felt tired. After dinner, I helped my mother clear the table. She hummed an old Japanese song, one she said her own mother sang when she missed Tokyo. She wiped the counter in slow circles. She glanced at me sideways.
You know I don't care if you cook.
I blinked. What?
You think I don't see? You think I don't know you watch cooking videos when you think I'm not home? You think I didn't notice the basil missing because you were trying a sauce?
Heat rushed to my face.
You like beautiful things. That's from both sides. Your father, he's afraid the world will eat you alive if you lead with softness. He doesn't understand softness can be armor too.
I swallowed. He thinks men should do.
He thinks men should do what kept him alive. You have the luxury to choose. He doesn't understand. Choosing looks like rejecting. You're not rejecting, you're choosing.
I wanted to stay in the kitchen forever, but the house felt a little too small for the first time. I went to my room, closed the door, sat on the edge of the bed. My room didn't look like a 24-year-old guy's room from TV. No neon lights, no gaming chair, no gym posters. A small shelf of fantasy books, a notebook, a plant I was trying to not kill, a print of a quiet coastline, my laptop on the desk with a bookmarked recipe for milk bread. I opened the notebook. On the first page I'd written weeks ago, what if there was a world where magic listened when you were honest? Underneath, I had scribbled, what if emotional resonance equals spell strength? What if softness equals power? Then I stopped, because even in a notebook I felt childish for writing that. I stared at the page, at the half ideas, at the parts of me I only let exist in ink. Down the hall I could hear the TV, my father's voice, my mother's answering hum, the house holding itself together in 3 languages. I thought about work, the gray cubicles, the way I muted myself on calls because my voice sounded too careful. I thought about the guys in my group chat from college who mostly sent memes and sports takes, and every few weeks someone would say, we should link. And I'd say, yeah, for sure. And we never did. I thought about the last time I'd been fully myself with someone. I couldn't remember. Maybe with my grandmother in Haiti when I was 8 before she died. Maybe with my mother when I was sick, and she made congee and soup jamu in the same week because she said the body needs more than one home. I realized how long it had been since I'd done something purely because I wanted to. I looked again at the line in the notebook. What if there was a world where magic listened when you were honest? I stood. I grabbed my backpack. I started packing like I'd been planning it for months, even though I hadn't. Sweater, notebook, fishing rod I'd bought on impulse last month because the idea of being by a lake alone felt possible. A flashlight, portable charger. Snacks? I hesitated, then grabbed the jar of my mother's homemade pepper sauce. I didn't know if the other world had flavor. I cracked my door open. My father didn't look up. He was into his show. My mother caught my eye for half a second. Her gaze flicked to the backpack, to the door, back to me. She didn't stop me. She mouthed, "Take your jacket." I smiled, small, grateful, guilty. I took my jacket. Outside, the night was the kind of cold that makes breath visible. which I liked because it proved I was here. Streetlights hummed. Somewhere a neighbor was grilling because some people don't care about seasons. I put the backpack in the trunk. I sat in the car for a moment, hands on the wheel, and said out loud, "I don't know who I am yet." The car didn't answer. Cars rarely do. But the idea of the lake did. The idea of water that listened. The idea of a place not organized by gender performances, but by circles. By what you love, what you tend, what you heal. I drove, highway lights, then smaller roads, then no streetlights, trees closing in. The kind of dark that makes you honest. The lake at the edge of the world was really just the lake on the outskirts of town. The one people fished in on weekends. The one couples took photos by. The one teenagers snuck to. But that night, it was something else. It sat like a coin of dark metal beneath a winter sky. Pines kept the wind, and the wind kept secrets. I parked. I killed the engine. The silence folded over me. The kind that wasn't empty. It was just waiting for me to say something true. I walked to the shore, lantern in hand. Fishing rod I still didn't exactly know how to use. Breath steaming. Heart louder than the water. I thought of my father saying, "You have to lead. You're the man." I thought of my mother saying, "You're not rejecting. You're choosing." I thought of the line in my notebook. What if the magic listened when you were honest? "I don't want to be small to be loved," I said to the lake. My voice didn't even shake. I don't want to pretend I don't like soft things. I don't want to have to be the loudest to be respected. I don't want to get married just because that's the template. I don't want to live in only one of my cultures. I don't want to pick a single country to make everyone comfortable. I don't want to translate myself for the rest of my life. The water brightened. No, it listened. Ripples moved with my breath, pulsing in exact measure. I laughed, then stopped. The lake pulsed again, like we were sharing a lung. "If there's a world where I can fit without shrinking," I whispered, "I'll go." And the lake, gentle as a hand, took me.
In another world, dawn had its own language. It didn't rush in like sirens or alarms. It arrived the way bread rises, quietly, then all at once. Mist first, low over the river like a blanket someone hadn't finished pulling up. Then a pale stripe of light over the eastern ridge. Then the birds, not in chaos, but in rounds, as if they'd agreed who would start the morning. The village that sat in that valley was called Vereen. Not a kingdom, not even a town, just a place people had chosen and then kept choosing. A river curved around it like an arm. A road climbed above it toward a stone fort, where circles met to argue and keep peace. In Vereen, roofs were red tile and weathered wood. Doors were painted in colors people loved. Green for grove folk, blue for river, yellow for grain. Smoke rose from chimneys in slow, satisfied curls. Somewhere a mill wheel turned, steady as a heartbeat. Vereen woke in layers. First the farmers, soft boots in the fields, low voices, the rustle of canvas bags. Then the washerwomen down by the riverbank, laughing already, slapping water, swapping news. Then children, first one, then three, then a whole flock, running errands, going for water, carrying baskets almost bigger than them. And then, exactly when the sun cleared the line of the trees and the village had finished stretching, the smell came. Warm, sweet. A little citrus today, a little honey. Amara Dale was already up long before that. She had a baker's day. Start in the dark so everyone else can start in the light. Her room was a nook above the bakery, low ceiling, slanted roof, a window that faced the river. She slept with the window cracked even in cold months so she could hear the water. She said the river's pace kept her from rushing. Beside her bed was a shelf with little things, a shell from the coast, a dried orange studded with cloves, a stone from the mountain road, a book a trader had brought through 2 summers ago about faraway markets. On the wall, a hook held an apron embroidered with tiny wheat stalks. This was her whole kingdom, and it fit. She sat up in the dark, stretched, and listened. The oven downstairs was still warm from last night. Good. The dough she'd set to slow rise was waiting, and the village, still a hush. Perfect. She braided her hair back, slipped into a wool dress, then into her apron. On some days she wore the plain white one. Today she took the blue-striped one because market day deserved color. She lifted a small woven basket from the peg by the door and slung it over her shoulder. Flour, she murmured to herself. River, oven, then people. Downstairs, the bakery smelled like yesterday's success. A few loaves cooling on the rack. Today's flour already measured. The big wooden table dusted, the brick oven breathing slow heat. On a shelf was a jar of starter. Bubbles slow, alive. Her oldest companion. She fed it absent-mindedly, like someone stroking a cat, then checked the bowl where yesterday's experiment waited. Honey and lemon zest, to see if she could make the festival rolls lighter. It looked promising. Then she took a cloth, covered her basket, and stepped outside. The air bit at her cheeks, but she grinned anyway. Morning belonged to her. She didn't go straight to the riverbank that ran through Vereen, the one everyone used. She followed the path that led past the last houses, through a little meadow, to where the river widened and fed the lake. The village said the lake was old. The village said sometimes it brought things. The village said once, a long time ago, it brought a whole boat from a far coast. Nobody in it, just clean ropes and fish from elsewhere. The village said a lot of things. Amara listened to all of them and kept what was useful. She went to the lake because the air there made better bread. Nobody had written that in a book. It was just true. The mist at the lake always smelled faintly sweet, like wet stone and blooming things. Out by the rushes, a certain reed grew a pale golden dust this time of year. If she tapped it just right, the dust fell into her basket, and mixed with flour it made the loaves crispier without drying. She liked small improvements like that. She liked knowing secrets that made people's mornings better before they even knew why. As she walked, she hummed. Not a song with words, a work hum. Every baker in Vereen had one. Her mother had hummed to keep time when kneading. Her father had hummed when stoking the oven. Amara hummed to remind herself, start soft. The rest of the day will get loud on its own. Amara was not an orphan in the tragic sense. She had been loved, raised, taught, and then one winter after the river froze late, sickness took both of her parents within a month. It left her at 16 with a bakery, a village full of hungry people, and a choice. Leave for the city up the road and apprentice somewhere bigger, or stay where everybody already knew the taste of her bread. She had stayed. Not because she was afraid, because Vereen had gaps, and Amara liked filling gaps. When the river circle lost a patrol member, she sent rolls and stew. When Mrs. Hannock's hip hurt in the rain, she sent ginger biscuits. When the schoolroom needed a stove, she baked until she could help pay for it. Baking was how she spoke love loud. Today was market day, which meant more people needing bread, which meant better to gather herbs while no one was yet in her doorway. At the lake she slowed. The water was still, holding the gold of the barely there sun. Reeds stood like slender guards. Ducks complained softly near the far bank. She crouched, tapped a reed, watched tiny golden spores fall into her basket.
Good morning, you.
She said to the lake because she talked to things.
You're kind today.
The lake didn't answer, not in a way she could hear. But the mist rolled back a little, as if to make it easier for her to move. She gathered a few more herbs, lake mint, a handful of narrow leaves that smelled like licorice, then straightened and looked back toward the village. Vereen was fully awake now. Smoke, people, color. On the path back, she met Tomo, a boy of maybe 11, half-elf, whose mother ran the dye stall. He was running with a basket half his size.
Slow, Tomo. You'll bruise the pears.
They're for Mrs. Honeck. She said if I make it in 5, I get a sweet roll.
Tell her she owes me flour if she's bribing runners.
Okay.
A few steps later, she met old Mira, who everyone called old even though she was probably only 50. Mira sold buttons, mended clothes, and directed gossip. She was leaning on her walking stick, staring at the sky like it had interrupted her.
Morning, Mira.
Morning, bread girl. Don't stay in that bakery until you turn to flour.
Then who will make your rolls? You want to eat air?
Fine. Stay alive then.
Amara went on, warmth sitting under her ribs. That was the thing about Vereen. Even its nosiness was loving. They wanted you present. They wanted you fed. They wanted you to build something here. She reached the bakery just as the first bell rang, the one that said vendors may start setting up. She pushed the door open with her hip, set down her basket, and felt the room greet her. Dough waiting, oven ready. Light coming in slanted. Everything in its place. She washed her hands, rolled up her sleeves, and began to work. Flour, water, salt, pulse. She didn't just knead. She listened. This was something few outside the valley knew how to do. How to let the body's own rhythm tell the dough when enough was enough. Essence baking, the elders called it. The Grove Circle used it for medicines. The River Circle used it for boat pitch. The Grain Circle, Amara's unofficial circle, used it for bread. She pressed, folded, turned, and with every movement she hummed. And when she was truly in it, when the world outside narrowed to dough and breath and heat, sometimes the dough answered, rose just a hair quicker, smoothed just a bit more. Tiny, everyday magic. The kind that keeps a village content without anyone calling it a miracle. She set 3 big rounds aside, dusted them, covered them. Then she started on the market loaves, smaller, braided, with bits of dried fruit from last summer. She pinched each end lovingly. People can tell, she thought, when hands were rushed. The doorbell jingled.
Shop's not open yet, unless you're starving or very old.
It's both. Starving and old.
Amara laughed and wiped her hands.
Come in, Honeck.
Mrs. Honeck swept in like she owned the place. Shawl green, cheeks pink, arms full of flower bundles.
You said you wanted marigolds for the festival buns.
I said I was thinking about them. That's different.
Thinking is the first step to doing.
Mrs. Honeck said, plopping the flowers down. She peered at the dough.
Good rise, you were humming.
I always hum.
Not always like that. Good sleep?
Good walk. Lake was kind.
Honeck's eyes flicked to the basket of herbs.
You went early.
Market day. People get grabby.
People get hungry. They like what you make. That's your fault.
Yes, I know. Popularity is a terrible burden.
If you hate it so much, teach someone else. Then you don't have to get up before the sun.
I am teaching. Tomo comes on Thursdays.
That boy wants to be everything. Last week he wanted to join the river patrol. Week before he wanted to be a bard.
Then let him try everything. We're not short on bread.
Hannock glanced around the shop.
You ever think of taking on someone your own age? Proper apprentice, not a snack-motivated child.
Amara hesitated, knife in hand.
Thought about it, but it would have to be the right person.
Meaning?
Hannock asked, eyes sharp, because she loved a lead-in.
Meaning, they'd have to listen, not just copy. Anyone can learn a recipe. I need someone who hears it.
Hannock softened.
Like your mother.
Like my mother.
There was a pause. The oven crackled. Outside, voices swelled, the market getting louder. Hannock tilted her head.
Maybe the lake will send you someone.
Amara rolled her eyes, but fondly.
If the lake sends me a baker, I'll bake it a cake.
Hannock laughed.
I'm going to tell the lake you said that.
Go ahead.
I'll come back for my bread. Don't sell it to the magistrate's wife. She doesn't need it.
I sell to whoever brings coin.
Liar!
The door jingled again almost immediately. This time it was Bryn. Wild hair, flower on his sleeve even though he didn't work here. Eyes bright like he'd already heard a story and was ready for 3 more.
Amara, they're unloading from the road. Travelers.
She kept kneading.
Travelers unload every market day.
Not like this. From the Fort Road, which means they're bringing messages and maybe new books and maybe spices.
Spices I'll buy. Books you can chase yourself.
He leaned on the counter.
You should come out.
I have bread.
You always have bread.
That's my job.
Bryn narrowed his eyes.
You know, for someone who says she wants to teach, you spend a lot of time inside.
For someone who says he wants to help, you spend a lot of time talking?
Amara shot back, but she was smiling. He grinned.
Fair. Need help carrying to the square later?
Yes. You owe me 3 carries for eating the test buns.
They were small.
They were many.
He placed a hand on his heart.
I will carry all the bread in the valley.
Good. Now go. I need to shape.
He saluted and darted out again, the way young people moved when the world still felt like a festival that might call their name. Alone again, Amara worked. And as she worked, her thoughts drifted to the idea she'd been nursing for months. A learning table. Not a grand school. Vereen already had one of those for reading, counting, circle lore. She wanted a table in the back of the bakery where people, children, elders, whoever, could come and learn to listen to dough, to herbs, to the way heat changes things. Practical magic. Domestic magic. The magic that makes a place livable, the kind that rarely got songs. But for that, she would need another pair of hands. Someone not just obedient, someone curious, someone who didn't flinch at tenderness. Where do you find a person like that? She wondered, shaping a perfect round. Do they just walk in? As if answering, the room shifted. Not loudly, not even visibly, just the air bent. Like when you open the oven and the heat rolls over you. Like when someone you love walks into a room and you know even with your back turned. A small, unmistakable change. Amara stilled, hands on dough. She turned toward the door. Outside, the market was still the market. Voices, clatter, a cart squeaking, someone calling for apples. But under it, a note. Faint, questioning, not from here. The kind of note you hear if you've spent most of your life listening. She wiped her hands, went to the doorway, and looked down the lane toward the river path. The mist from the lake was receding, and walking up from it, clothes wrong, eyes wide, hair damp but not from rain, was a young man she had never seen in Vereen. He looked like he'd fallen out of a question. He looked like someone a lake might send. Amara's first thought, not fear, not suspicion, was, oh, maybe I don't have to teach alone. Amara didn't move at first. She simply stood in the doorway, a smudge of flour on her wrist, watching the stranger walk out of mist. He looked startled, but not frightened, like someone who had stepped through a door that wasn't supposed to open and now couldn't quite decide if he should apologize or knock again. He blinked at the brightness. The air of Vereen shimmered differently than the one he had left. Warmer, greener, alive. His clothes clung heavy with lake water. His sleeves were rolled wrong, shoes caked with silt. He saw her the way you see an anchor when you realize you're still floating.
Are you hurt?
He looked down at himself as if checking whose body this was.
I don't think so.
His voice trembled only on the last word.
Then come in before you freeze.
The practical kindness of someone who saves questions for after tea. He hesitated. The bakery smelled like sunlight.
Is this your shop?
Sometimes it feels like it's the village's. Today it's mine. Come on.
She found a stool, pushed it toward the oven's warmth. The young man obeyed, half dazed, dripping politely on the floorboards,
Take those off.
nodding at his soaked jacket.
I'll hang them by the stove.
He did. Steam curled from the fabric, smelling faintly of pine and lake water. When she handed him a towel, their fingers brushed, barely, and in that instant, the air hummed. Not loudly, but enough that both of them noticed.
What was that?
Probably your teeth chattering.
She said too quickly, turning to fetch tea. But her pulse said otherwise. The room had recognized him before she did. By the time the first customers came, Amara had convinced herself that hospitality was all this was. A traveler, lost or half drowned, needed warmth and food. That was all. Yet she found herself watching him, how he looked at things, not as if he were confused, but as if everything was precious. The bread, the fire, the sound of the bell above the door. He introduced himself shyly.
Soren. From somewhere else.
No one in Vereen blinked at that. The world was full of arrivals that didn't explain themselves. By noon, his color had returned. He offered to help carry baskets to the square. She refused twice, then relented when he said please a third time, soft but certain. On the walk, she pointed out what mattered. The dye stalls where Mira sold gossip by the spool, the fountain where the river circle left offerings, the bridge that sang in wind. He listened like a man cataloging miracles.
Everyone here belongs to something?
To several somethings. Circles overlap. The trick is learning which song your hands remember.
And you?
Grain, and maybe hearth, though that one's unofficial. Feeding people is worship here.
He nodded slowly.
Where I'm from, feeding people is domestic. Ordinary.
Ordinary things keep the world from collapsing. We just notice it out loud?
They set up the stall. Villagers stopped to greet her, some to tease, most to buy. Soren stood behind, handing out loaves with the solemn concentration of someone performing a rite. When a child thanked him, he smiled. Not the polite smile he used to give strangers, but something unguarded. The child grinned back. The loaf glowed faintly for an instant. Blue, quick, unnoticed by everyone except Amara. He stayed. Of course he did. The fort sent no patrol to claim him, and the river circle declared, with bureaucratic mercy, that anyone found by the lake belongs to the lake's choosing until proven otherwise. That was good enough for Vereen. So he became the bakery's second pair of hands. Mornings began earlier. Amara shaping dough, Soren tending fire. At first he burned everything. Then he learned the oven's breath, how to open the hatch like you're greeting a friend instead of fighting heat. He listened, and the fire stopped flaring at him. He asked questions constantly. Not technical ones, but moral ones.
Why do some loaves rise more kindly than others? Do circles ever argue about whose work matters most? Why does the lake choose?
Amara didn't always answer. Sometimes she just let silence do the teaching. They fell into rhythm. She hummed. He began to hum too under his breath, like echoing a language he was still learning. Sometimes they walked to the market together, trading jokes. Sometimes they sat on the bakery steps after closing, drinking tea and letting the smell of cooling bread drift into the night.
You're from far?
Farther than the road knows. In my world, people call bread gluten. They count the grams. They don't listen.
Then maybe the lake brought you here to relearn appetite?
He looked at her, earnest.
You talk like someone who's already arrived.
She shook her head.
I talk like someone who built a small place where I can stop running. It's not the same thing.
Still, it looks peaceful.
Peaceful isn't easy. It's just quieter than chaos.
That night he wrote in his notebook, "Peaceful isn't easy. It's just quieter than chaos." He underlined it twice. They never spoke of his arrival again. The village accepted him. The lake's mysteries were common gossip. But between them, there lingered the echo of that first hum, the resonance that said recognition. He began to see it. The way her shoulders relaxed when she needed. The way she laughed with customers. The way her hands carried small scars from burns she never complained about. Confidence wasn't loud in her. It was weightless. Watching her, he started to loosen. He spoke more, even laughed at his own mistakes. Once he burned a batch and she only said, "Good. Now the oven knows you're human." He felt something unclench that had been tight since childhood. And she, seeing him find that ease, found herself restless for the first time in years. His curiosity rubbed against her settledness. She caught herself dreaming about the guild again, the one in the mountains she had once promised she'd visit someday. Maybe, she thought, peace isn't a destination either. Maybe it's a dock where you rest between crossings. Weeks passed. The bakery grew busier. So did Soren's wonder. He learned that the circles met under the fort's dome each month, and that people could train in their resonance. He began walking home later, standing by the bridge to watch lanterns float on the river. Amara watched him from the doorway. Pride and a trace of melancholy twined together. She knew the look of someone the world was about to call onward, but not yet. Tomorrow they would bake the festival bread, and the village would gather. And maybe, just maybe, she would ask if he wanted to stay through the season. For tonight, she poured him another cup of tea. The steam rose between them, carrying the scent of honey and hearth. The air hummed again, soft and certain. In that moment, both of them felt it. The quiet recognition of two notes that finally belong in the same song, even if only for one verse. Vereen woke that morning like a song halfway remembered. Bells from the fort drifted down the slope. Ribbons were tied to doorposts. Even the river seemed to run brighter. Once a year, the circles celebrated the harvest together. River brought water, grove brought herbs, grain brought bread, and this year, the honor of the first loaf belonged to Amara's bakery. Soren had been up since before dawn, flour on his jaw, sleeves rolled. The bakery pulsed with energy, ovens sighing, tables crowded with dough, Bryn darting between trays, stealing samples and gossip.
Don't burn the crown.
Amara warned, shaping the ceremonial braid.
You say that like I did it on purpose last time.
She smiled.
Every mistake is a conversation. The doe only shouts when you ignore it.
He laughed.
Then it must think I'm deaf.
Outside, the square filled. Musicians tuned flutes. Children carried baskets of flowers. Mrs. Hannock arranged her marigolds into suns. The smell of roasting and spice blended with lake air until it was impossible to tell where earth ended and appetite began. When the first loaf emerged, the crowd applauded. Amara brushed it with honey, then stepped aside so Soren could lift it to the light. A new custom, she said, for new hands. He held it up, nervous but proud. The glaze caught the sunlight. A shimmer ran through the crust like a heartbeat. People gasped. The loaf glowed. Just for a breath, a pulse of blue-white light rippled across the surface, then faded into warmth. Silence, then laughter, then cheers. Bryn whooped loudest.
He outsang the yeast.
Amara blinked, astonished, then started to laugh too.
Well, the lake does good work.
Later, circle representatives arrived, robed, curious, smelling faintly of parchment and smoke. They spoke to Soren politely, asked about training, resonance, heritage. He answered honestly. He didn't know. He was still learning to listen. One of them nodded.
Then perhaps come to the guild in the mountains. Listening is our craft.
They left a small token, a silver pin shaped like an open ear. That evening, after the crowd had drifted home, the bakery felt both lighter and emptier. The oven's cooling made tiny ticks, like a clock deciding what comes next. Soren sat on the doorstep, turning the pin in his fingers.
They want me to learn.
Amara wiped her hands, leaned against the doorframe.
That's what you've been doing since the day you arrived.
I mean officially. Up there?
He nodded toward the mountain where the fort's lanterns blinked like patient eyes. She studied him.
Do you want to go?
He hesitated.
Part of me does. Part of me thinks I'll ruin the bread if I stop humming here.
She laughed softly.
Bread will forgive you. It always does.
He looked at her then, the way someone looks at home before closing the door behind them.
You taught me how to be quiet without disappearing.
And you reminded me quiet isn't the same as finished. Go learn. Bring the noise back someday.
They stood there for a while, not saying more. Outside, villagers lit floating lanterns and set them on the river. Dozens of tiny lights drifted past the bakery, mirrored in the water like stars practicing being real. Amara took one, lit it from the oven's last coal, and handed it to him.
For wherever the lake sends you next.
He set it afloat. The flame steadied, then glided away, joining the rest. The night smelled of bread and river. The world hummed, not loud, not demanding, just enough to say yes onward. And for the first time, Soren didn't feel like he was leaving anything behind. He was simply following the note.
Quote of the week. The curious paradox is that when I accept myself just as I am, then I can change. Carl Rogers. Thank you for listening to The Magic That Knew My Name from the Portal Library. Episode 1. Accipere, The Lake and the Light. If you enjoyed the story or want to hear more, please like, subscribe, and comment.